Over in England, they were having a whole weird-ass movement. It was called Muscular Christianity. What the hell is Muscular Christianity, you might be thinking? Well, it all started with a guy named Charles Kingsley. So he was a writer, and he was also a man of the church. Oh. Charles looked around one day and realized that all these British heroes that he really looked up to were muscular. And he was like, these guys were brave and muscular and good Christians. Coincidence? I think not. So he became a huge proponent of muscular Christianity, just hyping up dudes to be buff in the name of the Lord. Well, it was kind of like good timing. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing, and it had a lot of men moving from farms to office jobs. And it turned out sitting at a desk all day just wasn't great for, the body or their biceps. On top of that, women all of a sudden had freaking rights. So they're mad. And they're like, oh man, like, what are we gonna do? Like, if we're not men, what are we? Equal to women? No. So in Europe and America, everyone was just losing their mind at the idea that men were turning into weaklings, especially the upper crust of society who didn't do jobs involving manual labor. I mean, they were all looking for a way to get, jacked up and fast. The solution? Sports and exercise. Yeah. Who would have thought? The idea was that discipline, teamwork, and physical strength weren't just good for winning games. They were also good for the soul. Churches and religious schools started promoting athletics as a way to build character. The Young Men's Christian Association, the YMCA. Ever heard of it? YMCA. That's what it stands for. Yeah, I didn't know that. Well, the YMCA was actually founded in 1844 to help young men stay physically, mentally, and spiritually strong. They built gyms specifically to keep men out of trouble and in top shape, all while keeping the faith. Praise God. Another thing Muscular Christianity was secretly behind, they created American football. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Because of the fear that men were becoming weak, they needed a sport that knocked them around a little bit, roughed up these boys, And by the 1870s and 80s, the combination of rugby and soccer morphed into something with more tackling, more aggression, and a whole lot more broken bones. The thinking was getting bruises would prove that just because they didn't work a job with physical labor, it didn't mean that they weren't strong. And it sounds crazy, but college administrators and Christian leaders actually encouraged football's brutality. They saw it as these young men being tough, resilient, and manly. President Teddy Roosevelt, I love Teddy. It's such a good name. Teddy, what a cute name. President Teddy Roosevelt was a big supporter of muscular Christianity, and he freaking loved football. And this obsession with strong, godly bodies didn't just stop at football. It made its way all the way to Jesus himself. Have you ever noticed, in certain churches or certain images of Jesus, all of a sudden, he's super ripped? I mean, it's not always the case, but in a lot of American churches, buff Jesus is lean, he's chiseled, he's oily sometimes, and you're like, okay, buff Jesus. Here's my buff Jesus meme. I have it saved on my phone just in case of emergencies. It started with muscular Christianity. Because if being physically strong was a sign of godliness, then obviously Jesus had to have the best physique of all. You can't have the Son of God looking like a frail young man when all these Christian men are out here deadlifting for the Lord. And this is where bodybuilding really took off as we know it now. So it could have been seen as self-obsession or, someone just showing off. It now became a symbol of wholesome values, discipline, and apparently divine favor. Thanks to muscular Christianity, America's obsession with fitness wasn't just about sports. Working out wasn't just good for you. It was tied to moral character and wholesome values. So in 1939, there was the first ever Mr. America competition. For bodybuilders, the Mr. America contest was like the Triple Crown, the Indy 500, the Oscars, the Olympics, all rolled into one. And before you know it, this was followed by competitions like Mr. USA, Mr. World, Mr. Galaxy, Mr. Universe. What else can we claim? Mr. Olympia. And the people who won these competitions could go on to have successful careers based just off that win. And one of these guys was a man named Charles Atlas. He was an American bodybuilder who won a competition. And Charles used his fame to create a bodybuilding empire. He created a workout program that became known as the Atlas program. And I guess to bodybuilders, it was like the Bible. Don't bring buff Jesus into this. The advertising for his program became pretty iconic. So it was like a comic strip, right? And it would show like a skinny guy getting sand kicked in his face at the beach. And because he's getting bullied at the beach, it motivates him to build muscle using the Atlas system. The skinny guy comes back later and he's totally jacked up and he stands up to the bully. It sounds cheesy, but the whole underdog approach, it really struck a nerve. Because of these ads, the everyday person was now kind of drawn to these weightlifting gyms, and they were like joining bodybuilding competitions. Finally, by the 60s and 70s, weightlifting became mainstream. But of course, this was all centered around men. And it's like, well, where did it leave the women? Well, for a long time, it left them out of the picture completely. Before the 50s, women were not allowed to compete in weightlifting competitions, period. You're a woman, sit down. Sure, there were people in the fitness community who promoted women being strong too, but that definitely wasn't how most people felt at the time. The idea that women could or should be muscular did not sit well with most of society. I mean, you're a woman, you're supposed to be helpless and frail and be tied up to a railroad, and a train is coming and I need to untie you and save you. That's what a woman's supposed to be. Helpless. So women were like, fine, we're just gonna do our own. So women's bodybuilding competitions started to pop up. And of course, they faced way more criticism than the male ones. People were asking how muscular is too muscular for a woman? Yeah, and this turned a lot of women off. I don't want to be too big or bulky from lifting weights. And if women did exercise, they mostly, and to this day, it still happens, but they mostly stuck to cardio workouts, Thigh Master, jazzercise, what's aerobics, I don't know, stuff like that, cute stuff where you get to wear a little cute little outfit, not lifting weights. But the truth was, it was just all propaganda, because if women could be strong, potentially stronger than a man, it would be just hurt the ego. I mean, the panic of men not being men anymore is what started the whole muscular Christianity movement in the first place. But thankfully, not all women were scared off by this bullcrap. There were some serious female legends in the world of bodybuilding. There was a woman named Lisa Lyon. If you've ever seen a 70s poster of an absolutely shredded babe in an animal print bathing suit with a mullet holding weights, it's probably her, or at least inspired by her. Lisa Lyon was the first women's world bodybuilding champion in 1979, and she was a muse for famous photographers like Robert Mapplethorpe. She was a fitness icon. Her body inspired comic book characters and honestly just redefined female hotness. You could be strong and hot. But of course, there's still a huge gap between what society views as acceptable workouts for men versus women. Back in the early 2000s, strength training for women, not really a thing. But fast forward to today, there was a 2023 survey that found that nearly 50% of women who exercise now incorporate some form of strength training into their routine, which is progress. Yeah, especially when you compare that to the early 2000s, when you'd walk into a gym and only see men in the weight room. And there was that myth. I remember growing up, it was you didn't want to lift weights because you didn't want to be bulky. And I don't know, you just never really saw it. But it's changing, which is great. And social media is a huge part of this uptick. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok have been flooded with strong female influencers who inspired women to start lifting. And then on top of that, the rise of CrossFit in the early 2000s played a huge role in normalizing women lifting heavy. And it was making it more about what your body can do rather than just how it looks.